So what have we done so far? We did a payload wrapper. Now, and we kind of left it alone there. Now let's do a little spear phishing. Let's do a little email attack using spear phishing techniques, using some of the social engineering techniques that we use. Again, what I'm going to be demonstrating here can easily be thwarted. All right. Most of the malware programs, discovery programs, antivirus software, things like that can easily discover these things and are going to block it. And by the end of this part of the video, you will see what's going to happen. Excuse me. So I'm back in Set Tools, and this one I'm going to do another social engineering attack. My machine is really slow. This again. All right, I'm going to do a spear phishing. You'll notice that I do have a mass mailer attack there. Not going to use that. Mass mailing attacks can't be launched from well-known email servers. Gmail, Yahoo, some of the other open free email servers. Actually, a spam attack, a spam mass mailer attack is very difficult to launch from any well-established or well-designed email servers. They have something on there called a governor. And what the governor does is it limits the amount of emails that can go out from a single person or a single entity in a short amount of time. So you can't say, send out 10,000 emails. The governor say, whoa, I'm not sending out 10,000 emails. That's obviously some kind of bulk attack. So how do the spammers work? They spam by finding poorly written, poorly implemented, poorly defended email relay agents, right? And they keep those, and they zombie those, whatever you want to call it, and they say they keep those in reserves. Now, even those will probably have some kind of governor on them that won't allow thousands of emails to be sent out in a given short amount of time. But if you have a bunch of these zombie email servers, a bunch of these open, unsecure email servers, then yeah, they will send out maybe a couple hundred over a minute. Maybe they'll send out a couple thousand over a day. The bad actors will stream this stuff. I want to do a spear phishing attack email so we can investigate the whole social engineering aspect of it. So I'm going to say, okay, do a spear phishing attack. And again, they're asking, do you want to do a mass attack or do you want to create a file format payload? I want to create a payload, right? Now think about legitimate emails and what's involved with legitimate emails. Emails that we all get. I get emails from my colleagues all the time with PDF files. I send out PDF files. We rely upon attachments. So that's an established norm for emails. The bad actors of the world know that, right? They know that people will, with all the training, everything like that, they know people will open up an attachment. That's established. So one of the things we educate users not to open up attachments from people we don't know or suspicious attachments or things like that. So the bad actors are playing on our, this is a normal process. So my attachment for this particular email, I want it to be a normal attachment that has some kind of exploit in it. Probably one of the most normal attachments we all get is a PDF file. So if I look, there's 13. I'm going to say, I'm going to create a PDF file that has something embedded into it. All right. Do I want to have my already existing PDF file or do I want to use a blank one? To keep this video simple, I'm going to do a blank one. But you could imagine if people create a whole bunch of these fake PDF files that look really good and have maybe potential content in there that's intriguing. A lot of our file systems, a lot of our email clients will actually do a view of what the content is. So maybe having a PDF file that looks legitimate on a simple view, you're not opening it yet, but the email client is allowing you to view it. Oh, it looks like that's a legitimate, well-written, important PDF. I don't have that, so I'm just going to say use one of the pre-built ones. All right, what do I want to embed into that PDF? I'm going to keep it simple. I want a reverse shell. I want a reverse TCP shell in there. I want it for Windows. Why? Windows is still the #1 operating system for the average client. The average person is still running Windows, and that's fine, right? So we know if we have some kind of connection into somebody's Windows device, we're in good shape here. This is at the level of step 1. But we do step 1 so we understand step 100. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do a reverse TCP shell. You saw that in the first part of the video when I was doing simple wrappers. All right. On this one, I can give it a URL. So maybe my listening device is up there on the internet, so I don't have to give it an IP address. I'm not going to give it an IP address this time. I'm going to give it a pretend listening device that is up there on the internet. I'm going to say, send this connection to listen device. I apologize for my machine being sold. This is a virtual machine running a computer, so it's running things.com. All right. I just made that up. Let's pretend, let's suspend reality for a second. I just made up a website called listendevice.com. Let's pretend I have a server out there called that. This is not an IP address. Are you using a host name? Yeah. The IP address for the reverse connection for this one, again, going to make something up. It's not a big deal. The port I want to communicate on. By now, if you're taking the ethical hacking course, you're taking the Security Plus course, you're taking Networking Plus course, you understand about ports and the importance of ports. If we use some of these tools for what they're meant to be used for, we should be using what they're meant to be used for. A penetration tester, a network analyst will often run these tools to look for open ports on machines. Now, we all know that HTTP port 80 is the web server port. That should only be running on a web server, right? But if I see clients with a bunch of port 80s open, the average machine, a Windows 11 machine or a Mac, somebody's client machine, and I see port 80, I have to ask that question. Why are you running a web server? Now, there might be a legitimate reason, or there may not be a legitimate reason. Same thing with all these open ports. If we see a lot of open ports on client machines, we have to ask the question, why? And if they don't have a legitimate answer, there could be a reason that something is listening to that port. So I'm going to keep it at 443. All right, so right now it's building a payload. And we haven't even gotten to the point, we've done some social engineering. We're thinking about the spear phishing. We're preparing the payload. We're thinking about sending a PDF there. But we haven't even gotten into the real social engineering of the spear phishing. We can look back at some previous material that we probably covered. Scraping of email addresses. So let's say, for example, I run a program that scrapes the email addresses and scrapes information off a known web server, lakelandcc.edu. I can gather email addresses. I can find out people's titles. And now I can begin to start thinking about who am I trying to spear, right? Maybe there's somebody of importance out there that if I send something, they will open. Now, we all get educated on what to look for, what not to look for, but this stuff works. Maybe not in this demo, but this stuff does work because they're working on people's pre-established mindset. Alrighty, so we've created that, and it says enter the file name. The new file name is called Moo. All right, I'm not going to move. Do I want to keep that file name, or do I want to change it to something cool? I will change it to something cool because nobody's going to answer. Oh, it did take the 2. Okay. Nobody's going to answer or look at something in a PDF called Moo. I'm going to do a single attack. Here, we could have different templates. Again, people, these bad actors, the good ones, spend considerable time developing things, working on the psychology of events. So they may have templates. I don't have any templates. I'm going to do a one-time email. Okay, subject of the email. I'm going to say draft space first semester or one semester enrollments. Okay, so the subject line of this email is it's a draft of the first semester enrollments. I can call it fall semester, spring semester, don't really care. But it looks like a legitimate title, something that might draw interest to somebody, especially if they're working at a college or a university. All right, send the message. It's plain text. Enter the body of the message. Okay, we're going to say, hi, Nick. Could you, my machine is slow, so the buffer on my keyboard doubles things up. Could you look at this report? I need it ASAP. Thanks. Jack. Now, a good spear phishing attack, they're going to go after specific individuals that they know about, right? So they scrape email addresses from machines, from websites, you name it, and they look for important people. And now I'm using my name. I'm not important, but they're using my name. So they're spear phishing me. I then going to, the other thing is, they're going to look for names that they can pretend to be. So maybe there's somebody at Lakeland called Jack Tripper, right? And I know Jack. He sends me emails all the time, so he may be a safe person. Well, all right, send email to ndetiro at lakelandcc.edu. So this is going to me. This email is going to go to me. Whoop, and got to spell. Now, let's talk about my poor typing and my poor spelling. No, let's talk about poor typing and poor spelling. I'm doing this. I don't want to keep recording and cutting and stuff like that. So sometimes you see me backspace. But let's talk about what really goes on. Someday, play around with Google Translate. It's actually pretty good. But people have found little weaknesses with Google Translate where you take a sentence and you have it converted to another language. Most of the time it works pretty good. I've personally used it. I've used it in Hong Kong. I've used it in Japan. I've used it in Korea. Usually when I type, they look, they scratch their head, they get a general idea of what I'm asking, and then they type something on their phone, gets translated, and I look and I scratch my head. It's good. A lot of times, if there is a lot of poor grammar, poor spelling, could be me, or it could be some of these translators, right? So you get to understand when it's a human error like myself, if the occasional, I said EUD instead of EDU, that's just, something that happens to people all the time. Sometimes when it comes to emails, we may not use proper grammar, right? We understand that. But when we start seeing a lot of really not just poor grammar, but grammar that is not real, right? It's probably coming from someplace else that's not a English speaking or native speaking environment, and they're using some kind of translate. Happens all the time. So a lot of times when you open up or you see an email and it's just like, that's really kind of interesting. A lot of languages, this is not a gender identity thing. A lot of languages do not have gender pronouns, right? My wife, born and raised in Hong Kong, Chinese does not have gender pronouns. So a lot of times she will accidentally mix her gender pronouns just because it's just not, that's not how it was written. So when you start seeing things like that, it's just one of those things. All right, so send it to Nick Tiro. All right. Do I want to use an open relay, email relay? I don't have one. So I'm going to use Gmail. All right. This is attached to the internet, so it will go through Gmail. I'm going to say, nope, I'm going to use a Gmail account. This is who's sending this, where it's being sent from. The email address, I'm going to get on my phone. And the individual who's going to send this is somebody called Jack Tripper 876 at gmail.com. So Jack Tripper at gmail.com. Now, what this program needs to do, it needs to establish a connection with Gmail. So I'm going to have to give it the username and give it a password so it will send this email to my Lakeland account. What name do you want to see it from? Okay, Jack. Now, again, here's where social engineering comes into play. Let's say, for example, I know Jack. I get emails from Jack. So when I see Jack Tripper, obviously that's an email. But let's say Jack works at Lakeland. Why am I getting an email about Lakeland from Jack's personal account going to Lakeland? Start paying attention, train your users to pay attention to email addresses. If you see an email address, I get these all the time. Endotiro with a bunch of random numbers at Gmail. Endotiro random numbers from Yahoo. Those are randomly generated email addresses that somebody is creating, some hacker is creating and trying something. And if I pay attention to that, I know, no, Jack does not, 876 doesn't make sense. What's going on here? It could be a real email, but my suspicion level should be raised. It's a common practice to use these open email providers, Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, if Hotmail's still around. As I mentioned earlier, most of the scammers don't use these because you're going to see why they don't use them in a second. But most of the scammers don't use this. They go out and they look for weak email servers. Who's it coming from? It's coming from Jack Tripper. Now I have to give it the legitimate password to that Jack Tripper account. All right, make sure I get on my phone. All right. You should notice sometimes, not sometimes, you notice in Linux never tells you how many things you typed. It's just a security thing. So, okay. Do you want to flag this as high priority? Yeah, sure. Why not? Playing into that psychological realm. No. Now we get to the meat of things. It says, unable to deliver the email, printing exceptions message below. This is most likely due to an illegal attachment. If using Gmail, they inspect PDFs and is most likely getting caught. This is a well-known program. Set Tools is a well-known program. The wrapping features involved with it are easily detected. So when I try to send this email, The Gmail server said, whoa, we're not even coming close to allowing this email to go through our services. It's kind of this script kiddie attitude. Now, if I was to know of a port, and I do not, if I was to know of a open email relay agent or something like that, then yeah, I could be able to send it through there. Since I do not, I can't send it through there, so I can't really do this demonstration. The same thing with that in the first part of the video where I did a payload. I can't send that through an email, right? Because the email, first of all, if I brought it over to one of my legitimate machines, with its virus protector, say, Nick, this is a payload. You know, we're not allowing you to bring this on there. So let me wrap some things up here. The demonstration is a demonstration. The tools used are that step one of a couple hundred steps of explaining how this stuff gets wrapped, how these payloads get created, how these spear phishing attacks happen, how these mass email things. But because they're well-known programs, again, in the category of a script kiddie type program, they become nuisances, not, I won't say they're not complete threats. You know, if you're attacking a weak system, a lot of weaknesses would have to come into play here. The email server that you're sending it through would have to be weakly defended, weakly set up. Gmail's not going to allow that to happen, but if you find one, maybe you build one, okay? So you build one. Who you're delivering it to. The client email program has to be very weak, right? Most of the client email systems out there, your Outlooks, your Mozilla mails, your Proton mails, they're going to flag these payloads immediately. Even if it gets past that, the virus protection on most of these machines aren't going to, the moment you click this payload, the virus protection is going to say, no, you have got to be kidding me. I'm not allowing that to happen. So the demo is a demo, but the concepts behind the demo are fact. For example, spear phishing happens all the time. There are there are individuals that work on these spear phishing attacks. All the social engineering, it's all true. Payloads, here we would get into much more sophisticated types of programming involved with the payload to thwart the Gmails, to thwart the clients, to thwart the malware attacks. That's why I've said for many years, these bad actors are not 15-year-old kids in their parents' basement. They are well organized. They are nation states. They are criminal enterprises, right? Because of the level of sophistication that is required to really start getting through it. But it is a war of escalation. As the bad actors get better, the good actors get better. And then they just keep working up. So a little bit longer video than I thought, but I thought it was a pretty interesting task. Let's go on and learn something.